Hey guys, welcome to the Sports Dance Podcast with Greg and James. I'm the second part, and with me, as always, he just got snubbed for the podcast All-Star team. It's Greg Cowan, everybody. What's happening, man?
I'm hurt feelings right now, James. That's what's happening. Hurt feelings. Don't know what I could have done more. I'm averaging a triple-double for podcasting, which means I produce, I host, and I, do the choreography for our music dance number that's going to be coming out in a few weeks. So
Right.
What more can I do?
We're bringing back the Harlem Shake. I thought that was kind of enough, but apparently it's not.
No, it's not dead till we kill it.
Yeah, exactly. Cool, man. Well, we have a lot to talk about on today's episode. We have some divisional round results, some conference championship predictions. We have takes. We have all this kind of good stuff in football. We're going to pivot to the NBA a little bit today, kind of get into it a little with about the happenings in the association, as well as some of the all-star teams that the starting lineups just got released. And I think that's going to mostly cover it today, but we have a lot to cover. And before we do, though, Greg, how are you, man? What's going on with you?
I'm pretty good, just hanging out. Have the inauguration stuff going on because I'm a big history person and probably
don't spoil it for me. I have it paused. I don't want to know what happens.
All right, so I won't tell you that strippers just came out. All right, sounds good.
Yeah, that's not surprising to me.
It wouldn't be that actually unbelievable when I say that. But yeah, not too much going on. Just been hanging out. Had a nice, relaxing weekend this past weekend. Went to a comedy show.
Oh, which one?
Mike Kaplan.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's had a few comedy specials. He's on Netflix. So it was cool because I got to talk to him afterward, and he's actually from New Jersey and lived only a few towns away from where I did. So he was like, "Oh, I know where you live." I was like, "Yeah,
cool."
I was like, "So that was kind of cool." So, and then watch football weekend, good stuff. So besides that, just been taking it easy. What about you?
Nice, man. Oh, not much, Greg. I actually have a new obsession, television obsession.
Wait, can I guess?
Yeah.
Is it The Young Pope?
Oh, it's The Young Pope. I love The Young Pope.
I don't have HBO, but I've seen it everywhere, and it seems like a show that would fit you.
I love The Young Pope, man. Like Greg, imagine a pope, but then Greg, imagine that the Pope's young. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see. So he's above 20, but below 50.
Well, I mean, that's
young now.
You're kind of overthinking it here. There's not a lot of thought that needs to get put into it, Greg. It's the Pope, the Pope.
Yeah,
in Vatican City.
I know he is.
He's normally an old guy.
Big deal.
Is young. Is he young Pope?
Mind blown.
So that's that's consumed a lot of my time. Just kind of that concept as a whole. It's a fun show.
I was gonna say it sounds like it'd be an interesting premise to just have a pope. Does he just not give a shit? How does it work?
I kind of feel like I told you how it works, Greg.
I understand that he's young, but is he cool like this pope where he's just fuck it, let's get on Twitter?
I just don't. I'm not following here. It's the Pope is young, Greg. That's the conceit of the show. The Pope is young. And
see, that's why I need HBO. I need HBO so I can understand these things. Because you talking another language when you talk HBO to me.
I'm not talking another language, Greg. It's pretty simple and straightforward. And I feel like you're trying to insult me at this point by getting the more details out of me than the massive amount of details I've already given you about the show. It's the Young Pope.
It's really I'm just mad I don't have HBO because I like Silicon Valley and I can't watch it.
Shell out for it, man. Shell out. Okay, that's been taking a lot of my time, and if you're a fan of the arts, you should check out Young Pope. Let's get into it a little bit. We have some divisional games to talk about.
Yeah, we do.
And let's kind of pull them up here. The conference championship is set. The AFC and the NFC conference championship games are set. And we had a couple exciting games that came out of last week. So let's kind of do, we're going to go through your playoff heroes and zeros thing that you mentioned last week. And Greg, why don't you start us off? Who's a playoff hero coming out of the divisional round this week?
Well, James, my playoff hero this week's coming out. It's a guy that's usually, not called upon often. Sometimes gets the wrong end of the stick if things go wrong for the team. But I'm going with the fourth killer bee for the Steelers, Chris Boswell, the kicker. The guy,
It's Boswell.
6 for 6 field goals, 45 yards was his longest, but kicking in the conditions that he was, it was cold, field was wet, just not a great day for kicking in general. But if it wasn't for him, they lose the game. They won 18-16, all on field goals. So that, to me, if you can do that and help your team win a playoff game to get you to the AFC Championship, you deserve to be the hero. Just once for a kicker.
That's pretty good. That's definitely thinking outside the box. I think that we're both trying to fight the urge just to kind of say Aaron Rodgers the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good one. Steelers going to the AFC Championship. Was not expecting that, Greg. I'm a Chiefs believer. You know that about me.
Yeah, it came to bite you in the ass.
I know. I got to kind of rethink what we're doing there. My playoff hero is a little guy by the name of Dion Lewis.
Good pick.
Dion Lewis, we missed him for a lot of this season and the second half of last season. He adds such a great complexity to the Patriots offense that he's really kind of become the X factor of our team. He's a great between the tackles runner. He's a fantastic pass catching back. And now he's also being featured in special teams. So Dion Lewis scored a rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, and brought a kick return back in the game against the Texans. And he's the first player in the Super Bowl era to do that. The Patriots are 15-0 when Dion Lewis is playing in over the last 2 seasons. And he actually fumbled a couple times, which is kind of a bummer. But he really is kind of a game changer here when we're going down the stretch, especially against these big kind of hulking linebackers that the Steelers have coming out here.
James Harrison,
Yeah, what happens when Dion Lewis gets put on James Harrison gets put on Dion Lewis and has to cover him out in the flat? It's probably the same thing that happened to
Marcellus or whatever his name
Houston. Yeah, exactly. Merciless,
yeah.
So I'm going with Dion Lewis here. I think that he's just going to provide kind of a great counter to James White and LeGarrette Blount. You have James White, who's your third down back. You have LeGarrette Blount, who's your first down, second down, kind of pound it between the numbers kind of guy.
Goal line.
And then you have Dion Lewis, who can do a little bit of everything. So if you put, for example, James White and Dion Lewis in the backfield, kind of spread out with your Michael Floyd, your Martellus Bennett, all this kind of stuff. All of a sudden, what do you do? There's just too many options that can come out of that formation.
He's basically become the new Darren Sproles of the running backs. Like when Darren Sproles retires, he's going to be the guy that takes that little man throne.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that Dion Lewis is a better actual kind of between the tackles runner than Darren Sproles. Darren Sproles is always kind of a catch him out in the flats and kind of make a guy miss guy. But I feel like Dion Lewis actually has the ability to kind of run, a traditional kind of I formation, set it up, and kind of, blow right through. So,
yeah.
He was a star in Pitt. He just couldn't find a place, here in the NFL until the Patriots picked him up. Go figure.
Yeah. No. He started with the Eagles, and then they traded him to the Browns, and it makes me angry every day, James. Every day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually funny. Guy from the Eagles, Emmanuel Ocho, one of their linebackers, tweeted out being like, so who was the genius that traded me for Dion Lewis? And whoever the former Browns GM was, tweeted back at him being like, that would be me. And he was just like, thanks, I guess. Yeah. But you guys missed out on a fantastic player. So good job.
Yeah. Playoff zero, Greg. Who's your playoff zero this week?
All right. This one's going to surprise you a little bit.
Yeah.
Because this person's team won.
Yeah.
But it was kind of despite them. I'm going to go with Tom Brady. And it's not because I hate Brady. It has actually nothing to do with that. But when you look at how he played, it was not of a guy that deserved to win a game. He was 18 for 38. So that's 20 passes he threw incomplete. He had 2 picks. He had 2 picks all season. And he threw 2 in the playoff, 1 game. And he had 2 touchdowns. But a lot of those catches and completions he was bailed out by his receivers. Amendola and not even Amendola didn't catch one. Edelman had a few really great catches where, it was kind of just like a lame duck throw that he was able to find and get under and get away from the defender to catch. But it wasn't anything that Brady was doing special. He was getting hurried in the pocket. He didn't look comfortable. If he plays like that this week, more than likely they're going to lose because they're facing an offense that actually can put up points, unlike the Texans with the Brockett chip, as you coined last week. So he's my 0 this week. He can easily make up for it. We know he's capable of huge games, but looking at everybody else this week, I'm not going to give it to Osweiler because I didn't expect much out of him. Alex Smith, I didn't expect much out of. Thomas Rolls isn't known to be a great running back. He just had one great game last week. But Brady's supposed to be the guy in the playoffs, and he was not this week.
I realize what you're doing here. You're kind of doing it to be controversial and bother me. But you clearly didn't watch the game if you think that Tom Brady is the playoff 0 this week.
Oh, no, I watched the game.
No, you clearly did not. Because
my brother-in-law actually said Tom Brady's on the decline. He's a big Tom Brady fan.
No. That's all incorrect. First of all, one of those picks was literally off the hands of Floyd or whatever the new guy is that we picked up.
Yeah, he was drunk.
So it literally hit him in the hands, and then they bounced up straight up in the air. He threw one legitimate pick, and he threw 2 touchdowns and consistently bailed out our team in 3rd and long. So I'm in stark disagreement with you. I think that's
what I said, James. He's my
because
0.
the real playoff 0 in this situation is Alex Smith. Alex Smith is the definition of a playoff 0. The Steelers' defense is not that good. Like they kind of dialed up some more pressure, over the last couple of games. There's no doubt about it. But the guy just can't throw the ball. He physically can't throw the ball. He averaged 5 yards an attempt with 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He consistently he looked at Tyreek Hill way too often. They kind of used him as a crutch almost. 172 yards, a touchdown, an interception, averaging 5 yards an attempt. That's a playoff 0, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great, but I'm also not. I know Alex Smith isn't a big play guy. He's not the guy to throw it deep. He's not the guy to get big chunks of yardage. He's a short pass guy. So
there's a difference between being a big play guy and actually like being a competent NFL quarterback.
Hey, he only had 1 turnover, 1 interception. That's all I saw.
Yeah, and Brady's interception wasn't even his fault. It literally hit the guy in the hands. Greg, if you threw the ball and hit me in the hands and it popped up and got intercepted, knowing you would make excuses all up and down the field being like, that was not my fault. You would not raise your hand and be like, that was my fault for that interception.
I would say I threw it too hard at you. I should have known you can't catch the hard pass.
No, exactly. No.
I would have
I've played pickup football with you, Greg, and I know for a fact that if it hit me in the hands, it popped up, and the other team got it, you would say that's not my fault.
No, our flag football team in Intramural was pretty bad in college, so I totally took blame. I popped a hamstring on a flag football field, so
it was not very good.
It was not like we were all stars. I would have gladly taken the blame there.
Yeah. Give me 1 sec. All right.
Okay.
All right.
We're going to put elevator music in there. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So that was playoff hero and playoff 0. It's going to be interesting to see what happens kind of going forward in the conference championship game. So let's talk about it.
Well, hold on. Let's quickly there's only one division game that I want to actually kind of talk about.
Okay.
The Dallas-Green Bay game, because clearly that was the only game that was really, exciting to watch all weekend.
Right.
So I just want to know your thoughts. You went with Dallas. They put up a hell of a fight. And, they just left too much time on the clock, it seemed, for Aaron to try to drive down the field and make a miracle, and he did.
Yeah, I don't know. Everyone's freaking out with them about the spike and saying that the spike was not the way to do it and, not the way to go. I don't know. In those kinds of situations, I always spike the ball. I don't know. If I'm playing Madden or something like that, I'm rolling down the field. I realize that they had a timeout, but they wanted to use it they wanted to save it for another situation. Now, I realize that when you say, I want to save the timeout, and then you don't end up using the timeout,
you look like an idiot.
But to be totally honest with you, I don't fault them at all for spiking the ball. I think that was the right way to do it. when you run up against like a talent like Aaron Rodgers, like you kind of have to rely and tell your defense like, hey, you cannot let him like just kind of let the play break down and have like a 40-yard pass all the way downfield out of bounds. Like, I don't know. I don't put that on the Spike as much as I put it on them kind of not being able to cover Jared Cook.
Yeah, and let him get that toe-touching reception. Like, he doesn't make that catch usually, ever, at all. I mean, he's not that type of guy. But
I really, even though they lost, I was really impressed with Dak's comeback. I thought that was really, really impressive. You know, he obviously was a little rattled in the beginning of the game when they got down early. But I'm telling you, I think he showed a lot of poise, especially in the fourth quarter. They scored 18 points in the fourth, and I think a lot of that has to do with Dak, especially, you know, getting more comfortable finding Dez. I wish that they had run it with Ezekiel Elliott a little bit more. I realize that the conversation and the argument is, hey, Ezekiel Elliott, they were down like 21-3 at one point. Like, you can't really run it a ton with him. But I feel like the Packers have such a horrible run defense, and he is like your MVP. I feel like you need to run it with Ezekiel.
Yeah, he's getting almost 6 yards. He's getting almost 6 yards a carry in that game. I mean, once it's getting close and it's getting towards the end, you got to just feed him.
Yeah,
keep feeding him. He's going to keep breaking chunks off. I think actually the thing that annoyed me the most about the game, with what ended up happening, even though I had the Packers winning, I think was just dealing with Skip Bayless's tweets afterwards. Did you see any of his crazy tweets that he put out?
No.
So here's one just from a day ago. So this is a few days after the game has ended. I still can't believe Mason Crosby barely made both those sorry-looking field goals and saved Aaron Rodgers from Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I'm not totally surprised about that. I mean, this is kind of what he's built his legacy on. So, I mean, good for him. You know, be continuously like, you know, spewing out just ridiculousness. But
yeah, I want to know how he thinks of that stuff.
You got me. I really was impressed with Dak Prescott. I think you're just going up against Aaron Rodgers, who's turning it around at the right time. You know?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I could point at Prescott and go, you know what? Terrible game by him, especially as a rookie. I mean, he had a phenomenal rookie season for a quarterback, especially. You know, went way farther than anybody expected. You know, I give him credit, but when you catch Aaron Rodgers hot and your defense, you know, finally fails you as it didn't for most of the season, you know, it's going to be hard to beat, and they almost did it.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to move on to conference champion?
Yeah, we can move on to those now.
All right, awesome. The first one is they're both on Sunday. So we're going to start off with the Green Bay going into the Georgia Dome for the last time to play the Falcons.
Yeah, now it's officially the last game at the Georgia Dome.
Exactly. Matty Ice, 11-5, hosting the 10-6 Packers. Atlanta's favored by 5.5 points here, Greg. Atlanta kind of dismantled Seattle, so I don't know. We barely talked about that game, but what do you think is going to happen here? Who do you think is going to win this one?
Well, as you said, Atlanta dismantled Seattle, so that's basically us talking about the game. It was over after the first quarter, it seemed, almost, with how defeated the defense, especially for Seattle, looked. But you know, I've been riding the Aaron Rodgers train, but I think it finally comes to its stop in the Georgia Dome. I think Matty Ice and the Falcons are just going to be too good offensively to compete with. And defensively, I actually think they're better than Dallas. Vic Beasley has been a beast this second half of the season. You know, he's really picked it up for that defensive line and, you know, really helped bring that pressure. I think if there's somebody that's going to get to Aaron Rodgers a few times, it's going to be him. He has the speed too. We know Rodgers likes to roll out in the pocket. I think if he does that a few times, he's going to get paid for it. So I think also injury is going to catch up to Green Bay. A lot of guys hurt. Devontae Adams is hurt. You know, Nelson with his ribs, Montgomery and his ankle. Even if they don't say it that much, I still think it's bothering him to an extent. So his offensive weapons are all kind of hobbled. So he really has to do a lot more. So I'm going to go with Atlanta. Julio Jones and Matt Ryan have a big day offensively, and they put up 31 points to Green Bay's 27 and move on to the Super Bowl.
Gotcha. So one of my favorite writers on the internet one of my favorite Twitter follows, one of my favorite writers is this guy named Shea Serrano, and he wrote for Grantland and he wrote for The Ringer. He just his internet writing is just fantastic. He gets it's just it tickles my funny bone. But he wrote after the game against the Seahawks about Matt Ryan. He was talking about quarterbacks and how kind of these great quarterbacks have like a glow to them a little bit, if that makes sense. Like when Tom Brady steps on the field in the fourth quarter, the dude's like glowing. Like when Aaron Rodgers gets into the huddle to get out there, and you like it's almost like a weird mystical glow that he's got to him. And all the great quarterbacks have it. Even like Dak Prescott in a way, like in that fourth quarter, the dude like just got out there poised and made some big time throws, and yeah, that 2-point conversion, all that kind of stuff. Matt Ryan has always put up really good stats, but he's yet to really kind of glow. Like he's never really commanded the field. It's never been like, oh shit, here comes Matt Ryan. I've never felt that. And I think that especially after last week's game against the Cowboys, I thought that the Cowboys were the best team in the NFC. I mean, they were the number one seed, obviously, but I thought that they were all around the best team in the NFC. And Green Bay still found a way to win. I think there's going to be a shootout, but I honestly am going to have to side with Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to have to side with, confirmed greatness rather than Matt Ryan kind of putting together what could really just be described as a career year and might not be anything more than that.
Yeah. It's going to be one of those games. It's going to go either way. It's going to be a shootout. It's going to be fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to that game. Both games this weekend, actually, in general, should be good. So, we'll move on to the AFC Championship game where we got the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off that 18-16 win in Kansas City, going into the dreaded Foxborough, to face the Patriots and their mighty offense and Tom Brady with all the lore, as you would probably say, the GOAT.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be a fun, interesting game to watch. So, James, even though I probably don't even need to ask this question, who do you have winning the AFC Championship game?
Greg, I'm glad you asked. The biggest thing that bothers me about the predictions around this game is talking about how, the Patriots can't play like they played last week because the Steelers will be able to put up points on them. The Steelers can put up some points. The Steelers have an offense. Have you seen Le'Veon Bell? Have you seen Antonio Brown? Have you seen Ben Roethlisberger? They can put up points.
They can.
You know what they did against the Kansas City defense, Greg?
Put up 18 points.
Put up 18 points. That's not putting up points. The Patriots put up 34 against one of the best defense in the entire league in Houston.
Well, against
a mediocre defense, the Steelers put up 18 points. I'm looking at Football Outsiders right now, Greg. Do you know the defensive DVOA ratings?
Yeah, I know what they are. I just don't know the rankings.
Okay, great. DVOA is what I kind of use to judge units because it takes into account kind of everything, pass rush, who they're playing. It takes into account schedule. Kansas City was the number 14 ranked defense this year. So against the 14th ranked defense, the Steelers put up 18 points as in their playoff debut, and everyone freaked out and were like, they can put up points. New England's number 11th ranked defense, Greg. Like they're playing a better defense this week, and we're supposed to we're supposed to say like, oh, I'm be super scared of them. Like they put up points against Miami, who's the 20th ranked defense. They're the bottom third in the league. But I'm supposed to be scared of the Pittsburgh offense because they put up 18 points against Kansas City. I'm not. I'm not scared of the Pittsburgh offense. I think that they're a bunch of pomp and circumstance. I think you got 3 guys that you need to worry about. And if there's one thing that Belichick is really good at, it's taking away their main weapons. He's going to take away Antonio Brown on the deep route. Antonio Brown's going to have a couple catches for like 13 yards. They're going to move the sticks, but it's going to be the bend but don't break thing that Belichick always does. And then there's, Le'Veon Bell is obviously a great running back, but he's really good at neutralizing their strengths and trying to make them beat you in non-traditional ways. And I don't think the Steelers have enough to do that. So I don't think that they have the offense that everyone's freaking out about. I'm taking the Patriots. I don't think it's going to be all that close.
Wow. Well, the pick doesn't surprise me. The anger and feistiness does.
It just bothers me. I mean, everyone's freaking out about how You know, like everyone, they looked at a game where the Patriots won by 18 points and said, "Oh, if they play against the Steelers that way, then you know, they're definitely going to lose." Like, what in what part of that game are they going to? It will indicates to you that the Steelers will beat them. In what part of the divisional round games, if you're taking those two games and looking at them, the Steelers put up 18 points against Kansas City. The Patriots put up 34 points against the number 8 defense in the entire league. And somehow we've got it into our heads that if the Patriots play this way against the Steelers, that they're not going to win. What is that? I have no idea where that logic comes from.
A lot of
The Patriots played an admittedly sloppy game against a great defense and still won by 18 points.
Can I quickly ask, who's the number one defense on that?
Denver.
Huh. Because I know Texans were technically ranked as the number one defense this year, so I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean, this is for DVOA. There's a bunch of different ways to rank defense. You can rank it by yards or points or whatever. Either way, the Patriots have the best defense left in the playoffs and the best quarterback of all time. And they also have one of the best special teams, and they're clicking on all cylinders right now. Even if they lost a couple fumbles, like whatever, that means that Belichick will yell at them and make sure that they don't lose that. So I'm just kind of confused as to where all this logic is coming from that the Pittsburgh will be able to hang like 40 on the Patriots. That's not happening.
Well, I'm going to tell you where that logic comes from, James, right now, because, you know, I am going with the Steelers. It's just one of those things. I feel like they have a good chance to beat New England. I've said it, you know, their road to the AFC Championship was going to be easier than I thought for the Patriots. You know, they dismantled the Texans pretty handedly, you know, and I'm like those people. I didn't think they looked that great, so don't bite my head off quite yet. But the reason I think Pittsburgh can actually put points on the Patriots defense, do you know the quarterbacks that the Patriots faced this year and how good they actually were? I'm going to read some names for you really quick. So here's some quarterbacks that the Patriots defense faced this year, and you tell me if any of them put any fear into your eyes. Cody Kessler, Andy Dalton, Landry Jones, Tyrod Taylor, Colin Kaepernick, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Jared Goff, Trevor Siemian, Matt Moore, and Brock Osweiler. None of those guys strike fear into me if I'm the opposing defense, and Patriots basically ate them apart. The only quarterbacks that they struggled with was Russell Wilson, who they lost to, a really good quarterback. And did the Ravens keep it close against the Patriots? I forget.
No.
Yeah. And they have Joe Flacco, who is somewhat decent. So, you know, they haven't faced any quarterbacks that you would say are, you know, top level quarterbacks. Even when they faced the Steelers earlier this year, Roethlisberger was out with his knee injury. You had Landry Jones, not the guy that's going to necessarily make AB and Le'Veon Bell look that fantastic. So that is my reasoning for going with
Jimmy
the Steelers.
Garoppolo for the Patriots, Greg. I mean, it's not exactly like they played upper echelon quarterbacks. You can do that with. There's not that many upper echelon quarterbacks in the league. So unless you play like the same, let's go through the Steelers right now. The Steelers faced. I mean, what are we looking at here? The Steelers they faced Robert Griffin, Joe Flacco, Andy Dalton, Tyrod Taylor, Eli Manning, Andrew Luck, who had no offensive line around him. They lost to Dak Prescott. They lost to Joe Flacco. They lost to Jimmy Garoppolo. You know, like what do you want me to say? Like they lost to Carson Wentz, Greg. You know, like there's not they didn't exactly face a murderer's row either.
I'm not saying they did, but I also know the Steelers defense isn't actually that great. They've been playing better as of late. So, you know, I think it's going to end up being a shootout. I just think in the end, you're going to have the Steelers maybe make a play or two more that help them push them over the head. That's just my personal thought. Trust me, I know I'm probably wrong. I'm going against the majority, 90-something%, who believe the Patriots are going to, you know, go to their 7th or 8th Super Bowl. I forget how many it is. I think it'd be 7th at this point. He's lost 2. He's won 4, correct?
This one would be...
It'd be 5th. Yeah, okay. So it'd be a 7th Super Bowl.
One for the thumb.
Yeah, one for the thumb. You know, so it's very possible. Tom Brady is a great quarterback. I was arguing with a guy last week on Twitter about this that kept putting stats up about Brady and Rodgers in their first 15 playoff games. And I was like, listen, they're both great, but are you trying to honestly tell me that Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have as many rings if he had the defense that Brady had? And the guy got mad saying they're not the same, even though stat line-wise, they were literally the exact same person. The difference was Rodgers' team gave up 25 points, whereas Brady's defense gave up 18 points. I was like, so I was like, that was my argument. He didn't really want to argue with me. He just kept yelling like Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. So it was fun for me. But I know Brady is, if he wins the Super Bowl, I will have to say he's the greatest quarterback of all time. Therefore, I hope he doesn't win the Super Bowl. That's why I'm going with the Steelers.
So you have the Steelers Falcons Super Bowl, and I have the Patriots Packers, which I think is pretty close to what we had anyway. I had Patriots Cowboys originally, and I think that you actually had Steelers Falcons.
Yeah, I've been sticking with my picks. They haven't steered me wrong so far. 4-0 last week in the division round.
Pretty good.
Feeling pretty good about myself. So I can take a gamble here.
Okay. It was a good discussion. I get upset when people kind of tell me, that the Steelers about to hang some real points on them.
Hey, I understand. If my Eagles were ever in this type of position, I'd probably get mad too, but they haven't been, so I don't know that anger.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Do you have anything else about football that you want to talk about?
No, I think we talked football out, basically. I don't think there's any big things outside of Goodell going to the Georgia Dome instead of Foxborough like a little baby.
Gotcha. Yeah, Goodell is I'm not surprised about that at all.
No.
All right, let's get into NBA. We haven't talked about NBA a ton this year. I mean, I've kind of dipped my toe into the water a little bit here. But
I think
it's
on your shoulders.
I know. I've been kind of consumed with the football playoffs. But some of my time is kind of freed up now that I don't have a lot of football games to watch. And we're going to talk a little bit more NBA going forward. And the first thing we want to do is talk about the All-Star lineups. So the All-Star game lineups were announced today, or yesterday, I guess, last night. So for the East, let's kind of go through it here. The East starters are Kyrie Irving, DeMar DeRozan, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Jimmy Butler. And then for the West starters, you have Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, James Harden. I think we should take this conference by conference. Let's start with the West because that one has, I think, the biggest story in it, Greg.
Oh, yeah, by far. Leaving a triple-double averaging guard out of your starting lineup just seems preposterous, and that's what happened.
Yes. Well, Russell Westbrook not starting for the West All-Stars. They gave it to Steph Curry, I guess, is the one who's starting over him. I think that you can make a case that he'd start over Steph or Kawhi. Kawhi's defense really kind of puts him over. So Steph really is the odd man out here. And I'm going to throw a couple stats at you, Greg. PER in basketball is something to really take a look at, player efficiency rating. It just kind of measures everything on the court. It kind of leans towards offense more than defense more often than not, but it does take into account it definitely takes into account defense as well. Russell Westbrook is the most efficient player in the NBA right now. He leads in points per game in the NBA right now at 30. He's averaging a triple-double.
Yeah, it's nuts.
His team is actually not that far out of it, to be totally honest with you. I mean, they're the 7th seed right now, but they would be like the 3rd seed, no, the 4th seed in the East. I mean, it's not his fault that that the West is pretty top-heavy.
Yeah, so the West is definitely stacked.
The idea that Russell Westbrook is not starting over Steph Curry, who is still great, but he's just having a decent
year.
He's not having a decent year. Yeah.
He's what? 24
points
25?
a game. 24 points a game. He's got 6 assists a game. His PER puts him at 17th at 23.
That's with Durant, Draymond, Clay, all those other mouths to feed on that team.
And he plays no defense. So like, what are we doing here? Like, I realize that you want Steph Curry in the All-Star game, and you can put him in the All-Star game, but he does not deserve to start over Russell Westbrook. There's just no way.
No, not by a long shot. Him and Harden, you could argue that Westbrook should be over Harden and Curry for that guard spot position. But, I mean, Curry really is the
I don't think so. I don't think over Harden. I think that Harden – I honestly think that Harden and Westbrook are running a 2-man race for MVP right now, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, Curry's the odd man out, but you could say that he deserves it over either two technically with what he's done.
Yeah, so, I would say so.
But, I mean,
the other question I think is, I guess Kevin Durant is probably, I guess that makes some sense. I think Kawhi Leonard makes a ton of sense. I think that he's not like the sexiest pick in the entire world.
But if you want to look. Season.
if you want to look off of just sheer numbers, he's the best player on the second seed in the West. He is the second in player efficiency rating. He's right behind Westbrook.
And that's because of his defense.
Exactly. In terms of points per game, he's putting up more than Curry. He's putting up 25. He gets put on the best players. He gets put on the best player on the other team every single night defensively, and he does a great job with it. So I have no problem with Kawhi being on here.
And then the brow gets on because it's in New Orleans. You need somebody from the home team starting, basically, and he's as badly good a player as anybody. You could say, argue,
I have
big men.
I have a little bit of a tough time with this one. Yeah, I mean, I have another little bit of a tough time with this one. I could see Boogie getting put on there as well. I think that's basically it for that last slot. You wanted to put either DeMarcus Cousins or Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis. The thing that's a little tough for me is that his team is so bad. His team's horrible.
Yeah, that's the thing. You have guys like him and Boogie both on awful teams.
Yeah, like what happens? Like what? Aren't you supposed to be, if you're like kind of a world class big man who can do everything? Like, aren't you supposed to be able to like turn this around? Like, look what Joel Embiid is doing over in Philadelphia right now. They've won
process.
They've won like 7 of their last 10, and he's like, it's mostly because of him.
Yeah, he's killing it on the court and off the court.
Yeah, exactly. And the 76ers are, to be honest with you, not that far behind where the Kings and Pelicans are. So, like, what's going on here? Why are we rewarding these two guys with all-star starting positions other than the fact that their numbers are ridiculous?
I don't know. All I know is I actually think what should happen is a formal request should be put in to allow Russell Westbrook and we'll talk about the East side in a second because the other guy that I think got snubbed big time is your boy from the Celtics. I think we should have put in some sort of formal request to allow those two to be the actual starting guards for the East and let Westbrook face off against the West All-Stars and mainly just dominate Curry, Harden, Durant the whole game because that'd be great.
Yeah, let's talk about the East now. So we have Irving, DeRozan, LeBron, Giannis, and Jimmy Butler.
I see one actual All-Star on that team.
I think it's a mess, to be honest with you.
Actually, I'll give it two. I'll give the Greek Freak a pass. He's a pretty dominant player.
I think that Giannis is I think that he's one of the stories of the league right now. If you want to keep harping on that PER, the top 3 are Westbrook, Leonard, and Giannis. Up there. There's no one like him in the league right now. I mean, he's just like, it's unbelievable. He's averaging 23 points. 8 rebounds. He's second in the league or the 4th in the league, in blocks per game, behind Davis, Rudy Gobert, and Miles Turner. So he's impacting him on that side as well. He's a blast to watch, and they're basically leaning on him and then to a lesser extent Jabari Parker in order to keep that team afloat. If you look at the standings right now, I mean, they're doing a decent job. They're going to probably overtake the Bulls within the next couple of days here for the next for that last playoff spot. But
yeah, the Bulls are a mess.
So I give Giannis a little bit of a pass, also because I just love Giannis. I think it's tough for me to say that you're going to put in Kyrie Irving right now over Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, I would put my starting lineup for the East would be Isaiah Thomas. I would put Lowry over DeRozan because I think Lowry's actually having a better year. And then LeBron, Giannis, and get a big guy in there that can deal with the brow technically and match him. Put Joel Embiid in there just for fun.
I think that Joel Embiid should be in there, to be honest with you.
Like,
I mean,
instead of Jimmy Butler, like
he's only averaging like 26 minutes a game. He's barely playing. But I think that the stories in the NBA this year have been the Warriors versus the Cavs. The Warriors versus the Cavs, which I think is fun. Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Giannis, and Joel. I think that those are the stories of the NBA this season. I think you gotta actually, reward those people. Jimmy Butler's having a great year. There's no doubt about it. Jimmy Butler is having a great year. But I mean, I don't know. He's not putting up the PER that anyone else is. Isaiah Thomas has a better PER than him. If you want to look at points per game, Jimmy Butler's right outside the top 10. So I mean, he's in the conversation, but he's not quite there. Isaiah's averaging 28, and Butler's averaging 24. Kyrie Irving is averaging 23, by the way. So let's kind of throw that out there. In terms of assists per game, Jimmy Butler's not even in the top 20.
No, I mean, Jimmy Butler's a good player. It's not like he's not a good player. He could be on the All-Star team, but as a reserve. Like he shouldn't be in the
Jimmy Butler
lineup.
and Kyrie Irving are not even in the top 20 in the backcourt for this team right now is not in the top 20 in assists per game.
No, how Kyrie's in the starting lineup baffles me. It's like how Curry's in the starting lineup. I get they have big fans and people want to see them in the game, and their fan base has come out huge, but both of them don't deserve to be in the starting lineup this year. It's just facts.
Yeah, exactly. Players that are averaging more assists per game than DeRozan, than Kyrie Irving, and then Jimmy Butler, the starting guards and then wing of the East All-Star game. Players that are averaging more assists. Elfrid Payton of the Orlando Magic. Eric Bledsoe of the Phoenix Suns. Dennis Schroeder of the Atlanta Hawks. Goran Dragic of the Miami Heat. Tim Frazier. Have you ever heard of Tim Frazier?
Actually, I have. Is he on the Pelicans?
He is on the Pelicans.
All right.
Still on the Pelicans. Yeah, absolutely.
He was a good FanDuel steal last year a few times.
And then, of course, Kyle Lowry. Oh, and Darren Williams. Do you remember Darren Williams? Darren Williams of the Dallas Mavericks is getting more assists than DeRozan, Irving, and Butler. So I hope you don't like passing in this game.
Been on the Mavericks and the Nets and then back to the Mavericks, and everybody thought was going to be fantastic, but actually ended up being kind of like a bust for how good of a guy he was. Yeah. Did he
that Darren Williams?
Or was it Illinois? One of those two teams in college. I forget. I just remember.
I can't remember. So I don't know. I hope that they kind of rectify this. I think that Isaiah Thomas was a clear guy that they should have started in the All-Star game. I think that he's had such a fantastic year. The Celtics are a 2 seed right now, but they're only 2 games off of Toronto. They lost not too long ago against Toronto. That would have tightened it up a little bit. I think they could get to the 2 seed, kind of like I predicted, but it'll be a tough kind of go of it. And we'll see what happens there. Yeah. Any other thoughts about that All-Star, the All-Star game?
No, I think we covered the main points of just who should actually be in that lineup and who isn't. I mean, we won't have more to talk about until they give us the reserves and see if anybody got snubbed out of that big time.
Yeah, we will talk about it. So we'll see what happens. The other big news coming out of the association right now is that the Clippers are kind of in the tailspin a little bit here.
Which is weird to say about a team that was on a... Did they win last night? Because if they did, it's an 8-game winning streak.
They had a great start of the season, and then they did kind of peter off a little bit, but then they started coming back a little bit, like you said. The last, they're 7-3 in their last 10.
Yeah, they were on a 7-game winning streak and lost last night.
The big thing is, though, Griffin is still out after his arthroscopic, you're welcome, knee surgery.
Big words.
And Chris Paul is out for 6 to 8 weeks.
That's really the case.
This is tough, I mean, obviously, when Blake Griffin coming back will be better, but I can see them kind of falling a little bit, especially if you see like a team that's kind of young and hungry, like the Utah Jazz, nipping at their heels a little bit here. I could see them falling out of the top 4 in the Western Conference without those 2 guys for any kind of extended period of time.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. They could fall possibly down to maybe 6th or 7th seed, which would be kind of shocking. But yeah. I think they keep it afloat to an extent. I think they stay above Memphis and OKC because they'll definitely stay above Denver, who's the 8th seed right now.
Yeah, that last playoff spot is garbage.
Can I just quickly ask, what the hell happened to Portland this year?
Ooh, they're kind of also imploding. I saw that Damian Lillard kind of went off and on Twitter last night. I didn't fully look into it, but it's not good.
Yeah, like they were a good, fun team to watch last year, competitive, and then this year, horrible. But yeah, the Clippers got to worry. Chris Paul is their playmaker. Now they have to rely on Austin Rivers to be a playmaker for them. And whenever those words have to be said for 6 to 8 weeks, Austin Rivers, your go-to guy, it's a little concerning.
It's tough. It's tough. 100%, man. Association in free fall. We're going to talk more about the NBA as it gets closer to the All-Star game and as those picks kind of come through. Is there anything else you want to cover, man?
Did you read the article yesterday about Dwayne Wade? And I just thought it was interesting, kind of a few things he said about if Jimmy Butler gets traded, what might happen.
No, fill me in.
So I read the article. So basically they were like, hey, if Jimmy Butler does get traded at some point this year, what are your thoughts on that? And he goes, well, honestly, I'd have to kind of reassess my whole being in Chicago and playing the game, because he came there because of Jimmy Butler. He's the one that called him up and was like, listen, come to Chicago, come back to your hometown. Let's, build the Bulls back up together. And that's kind of what got Wade on board. So he's like, if Jimmy Butler gets sent off, he's like, might have to contemplate maybe retirement or trying to kind of force his way out of Chicago and get to a team that's not in the rebuilding process, because, he's 35. He doesn't want to be on the rebuilding team anymore. That's kind of why he left Miami. He didn't think they really had a chance at anything. So I think it'll be interesting over the next month before the trade deadline to kind of see that storyline, because if Butler goes, do we see Wade try to either push his hand or just at some point basically say, hey, after this season, I'm done?
I think the Bulls completely misplayed this offseason as a whole. I mean, I think that Jimmy Butler is a good player, but I think that he's like the second best player on a really good team. So in my opinion, I think they should have traded him somewhere to try to get as much back as he possibly could. Tanked during this season, which is supposed to have a fantastic draft. Everyone's freaking out about this draft being so deep with good players. Rather than doing that, they kind of blew some money on Rajon Rondo and Dwayne Wade. And I think that if you had built around some of young guys too, like Doug McDermott,
Dougie McBuckets.
Yeah, I think that you could have done something, but I don't know. I mean, they've got like this one asset in Jimmy Butler, and they're like, what can we do with this? And now there's talk about them trying to bring on Chris Bosh. It just seems like a mess. So I don't really know. They kind of like have weaseled their way into like the middle of the pack and have no kind of direction where they're going. So
yeah, it's either tank or try to actually keep that playoff seed, because they're number 8 right now. They're barely hanging on.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens going forward. It's gonna be an interesting couple of months here in the association. I don't know if there's any kind of jostling at the top or anything like that. We'll have to see.
Yeah, no, it'll be fun to watch, and for anybody that loves the NBA and the association, it's going to pick up a lot more for us, because once the NFL is done, the off season, baseball and basketball is going to be our bread and butter.
Absolutely. All right, man. I think this was a good episode.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed our conversations about Tom Brady.
Me too, to an extent. No, I'm just kidding. It was great. Okay, man. Anything else you want to cover before we let it go?
Hey, just remember, you have to wait 90 minutes after the show ends to do any Facebook Lives. You don't want to catch me saying anything and anybody an asshole on here.
Yeah, well, it's going to be bulletin board material for me when I come back next week. It's going to be better than ever.
Oh, you know it.
All right, man. So thanks you guys for listening. Follow us on all the social media and all that kind of good stuff, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Talk to you guys next week.